Hi, this is MJ, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make our Sunny Sunflower cardigan. It incorporates these beautiful sunflower granny squares on the bottom of the cardigan as well as the sleeve cuff. The pattern is worked top down in a raglan style and it's completely seamless. I've even used the join as you go granny square technique to add the granny squares. I've included a hood on the pattern, but that's optional. You can remove it if you prefer not to add it because it is added after we crochet the yoke. So you can have it with or without a hood. The yarn that I've used is Bernat Softy Cotton in the color cotton and the color sandstone for the center of the sunflower and golden, but I do have some substitutes listed on the blog if you prefer a different yarn. So the Bernat Softy Cotton is a blend of, let me find it here, it's acrylic and cotton, so 60% cotton, 40% acrylic. But if you're looking for a 100% acrylic yarn, mellow spun, a DK would be a good option. Also, you could try comfy sport weight. There isn't a comfy DK weight option, but I feel that the sport weight would be very similar to the DK weight in the Bernat Softy Cotton. But if you wanted it a little bit heavier, you could always opt for the worsted weight as well, because it is a thinner worsted weight. So either one, just work on meeting the gauge and you should be fine. So I'll be using a 4.5mm crochet hook for this pattern. So this is a dots hook. I do use my Mary Maxim wood hook throughout the pattern as well. So depending on what you prefer, if you like the nice soft handle hooks, the dots are a great option. But I do love the wooden hooks as well from Mary Maxim, so I will link those as well. This is the dark, but they do have some different styles that you can choose from with their wooden hooks. So we'll be making sunflower granny squares for this cardigan, and you're going to need to make two sizes. So you'll need, the sunflower is the same for both squares, but for the bottom of the cardigan, you'll need to crochet your sunflower with 2 rounds of granny stitch. And for our sleeves, you will crochet only 1 round of the granny stitch. The second round for this one will be crocheted as you go, as we will add it to the cuff in that manner. And for the bottom of the cardigan, you're going to be crocheting the last round as you go as well. So it ends up with 3 rounds, but that last round is crocheted as you go to join it to the bottom of the cardigan. Now, once you make your granny squares, you're going to want to block them out, and you can see the nice clean edges that we have here on each of them. So make sure after you make them to block them out to measurement. So the larger square is 5 inches and the smaller square is 4 inches. So now to make our granny square, we're going to need our 3 colors, and we're going to be making 6 squares that have only 1 round of our granny square. And then for this size, we'll be doing 7 granny squares that have 2 rounds of our granny stitch in the cotton color. I also have these ones blocked before adding them to the cardigan. So let's get started. So we'll begin with the orange color. We're going to wrap the yarn around our index finger 3 times for a magic ring. We're going to take our hook, sliding it through all 3 loops. You're going to grab that first loop, pulling it through, and chain 2. We'll now work 12 half double crochets in the ring. So now once you have your 12 half double crochets, we're going to pull the ring tight. So take your tail, start to pull it. It's only going to pull in 1, I'm going to give that a tug, and then with the tail, we'll pull. Now we'll slip stitch into our starting half double crocheted join, chain 1, and we'll work 2 single crochet into every stitch. So increasing from 12 to 24. Okay, so just keep adding your 2 single crochet per stitch around. We'll slip stitch to join. Okay, and then we can change over to yellow. And we'll chain 4. Pull that tight just to make sure everything's nice and snug. So we're going to yarn over twice, go down through the same stitch, and I'm going to crochet over those tails, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we now have only 2 loops on the hook. Our chain 4 counts as our first treble. We've made our next treble, and we're doing 4 trebles together. So yarn over twice, go down through the same stitch, and I'm still crocheting over the tails, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, because we want to get that we have only 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over twice. I'm not going to crochet over both the tails, only 1 this time. Back through the same stitch, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we have 2 loops on the hook. We now have 4 trebles. I'm going to yarn over, pulling through the last 2 loops. 1, 2, 3. So chain 3. We're going to skip the next stitch, working 4 trebles together in the next. So yarn over twice, down through the stitch, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we only have 2 loops on the hook. Now we'll yarn over twice, and for the next 3 trebles, we'll be yarning through 2 3 times. So pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we only have 2 loops. Yarn over twice, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. So only 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over twice, back down through the same stitch. Okay, so we have 2 loops on the hook, and yarn over, pull through those last 2 loops, chain 3. So we now have 2 of our petals completed. We're going to skip the next stitch and do the same thing in the next stitch. So yarn over twice. I'll speed it up this time. So pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over twice, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over twice, okay, so then we have 4, yarn over, pull through 2, and chain 3. Okay, so you're going to work that all the way around. You're going to end up with 12 petals. So what we can also do at the back, I'm going to trim. So I have a stitch between these two tails now, and if you just want to knot your tails together rather than weaving all of them, you can do a nice secure knot. You can always then weave these tails for extra security, or give them a trim. Now this tail you'll want to weave back in the opposite direction to secure it, and then you can trim it as well. But I'm going to keep going with my petals. Once you've worked your 12 petals, we're going to slip stitch in our starting chain 4 to join, and we'll fasten off. So now we'll start our round of granny stitch. I'm going to put a slip knot on the hook. And I'm not going to go into this space, I'll go into the next chain 3 space. And I'm going to chain 3. That counts as my first double crochet. I'm going to work a double crochet, another double crochet, so that forms my cluster, chain 1, and work another 3 double crochet to make our next granny cluster. I'll chain 1, and in the next chain 3 space I'm going to work 3 half double crochets. So 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, and in our next chain 3 space, 1, 2, 3 half doubles, chain 1, and then we're going to make our next corner, which will be 3 double crochets, so I've worked 3 doubles, chain 1, so we'll chain 1 and then we'll work another corner. So we'll work 3 double crochets, chain 1 and 3 double crochets, chain 1, and then in the next 2 chain 3 spaces we'll do 2 half doubles. We'll do another corner, 2 half doubles, and we'll work around in that manner. So half double crochet clusters, chain 1, 3 half doubles, chain 1. So I'm coming around, we're finishing in the last chain 3 space with 3 half doubles, chain 1, and I'm going to slip stitch in the first double, slip stitch in the next, and slip stitch in the chain 1. So now for the sleeves, this is all you'll do. You'll fasten off, weave in any of your tails, and then you'll want to make sure to block them so you get nice edges just like this for your cuff. So make as many as needed for the size that you're working on. And these will measure out at 4 inches. And then we'll continue with another round for the bottom of the cardigan. So for the next round, we'll begin with a chain 3. And we're going to work another corner. So we're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets, chain 1. Then we'll be working 3 doubles in each chain 1 space. So 3 doubles, chain 1, 3 doubles, chain 1, and then in our corner chain 1 space, we'll work 3 doubles, chain 1, and 3 doubles. And we'll continue working that all the way around. Once you get all the way around, I've chained 1, we can slip stitch in our first double, slip stitch in the next, slip stitch to our chain 1 space, and then fasten off. So I'm going to begin with the cotton color, and we're going to start out with our foundation row. And we're going to begin with a chain of 93. So once you've worked out your chain, we're going to single crochet across it. Now I'm going to go in the back bumps of the chain rather than the back loop. So we're going to work into the second chain from the hook. So you want to turn, find that little bump. Now if you've chained too tight, it will be harder to work into them. And I'm struggling here myself to get in, so I've maybe chained a little too tight. You can always redo your chain if you're finding it's really hard to work into them. And if you decide just to work into the back loop of the chain, really that's fine as well. This isn't meant to be overly difficult, so work your chain as you prefer. You can even do a foundation single crochet if you prefer that method. It's a little bit more advanced, but if you prefer that, go ahead and do a foundation single crochet of 92 stitches. Because when we work in the second chain from the hook, we actually end up with 92. But if you're starting with a chain, you need that extra chain. So you need to chain 93. So I'm going to go ahead and work my single crochets along the back bumps, and then I'll meet you back up again to get the yoke started. Okay, so I finished working that across, and it's about 17 inches. I know sometimes people will want to know roughly before they get started into it that they measure that out. So it's about 17 inches. Now, as we work into the pattern, it loosens up, but that starting foundation row is about that length. So now we're going to get our yoke set up. We're going to begin with a chain 4. So let's turn 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to count as a double crochet in a chain 1 here and throughout the pattern. We're going to skip 2 stitches. So we're going to skip this very first stitch here, skip the next stitch, and then we're going to work 3 doubles. So now we're going to, if you're following along with the written directions, you're going to see there's going to be a star, and then work 3 double crochet in next stitch, chain 1, skip 2 stitches. So this actually starts with this cluster here. So work 3 double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, skip 2 stitches, and that is the repeat. So you will notice that there will be a star from work 3 double crochet to the skip 2 stitches. And then in the written pattern, we refer to that as the repeat throughout. So what we're going to do now is repeat that 3DC, chain 1, skip 2 stitches 3 more times. So we've skipped 2, we're going to do 3, chain 1, skip 2. So when we're repeating 3 more times, that means we're going to have 4 in total of these clusters. Chain 1. Okay, so this gets us to 4. Chain 1. And then we're going to do, in the next stitch, we're going to do a V-stitch. So a V-stitch is, so we skip over the 2, a V-stitch is double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the same stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters, and this is going to be the front panel. This now will separate between our front, we'll go front, sleeve, back, sleeve, front as we work across. So now if you look at the pattern, it's going to say repeat from star to star 4 times for the sleeve. So that is the same repeat that I've already shown you, the 3 double in a stitch, chain 1, skip 2 stitches. So rather than writing out all of that information again, the technical way to write this pattern is to write it out that way. From star to star, we're now going to repeat 4 times. And I just want to clarify this as I'm going through this pattern, the proper way to write this out in a technically written pattern. So some people find this easy to follow, no problem. Other people find it difficult. But essentially, the pattern is just telling you what to repeat again that's worked in the star, which is a really small repeat. It's just the 3 double crochet in a stitch, chain 1, skip 2. So let's do 3 doubles, chain 1, skip 2 stitches, and we're doing this 4 times in total. So we will have 4 clusters again for this section. So I'm going to go ahead and do, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, chain 1, skip 2, and then we work another V stitch, which separates these sections. Chain 1, skip 2. And the next section for the back, it says we will repeat from star to star 10 times. So doing the exact same thing, we're doing our cluster, chain 1, skip 2 stitches, and we want to do it 10 times, so we want to have 10 clusters for the back. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing that. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've already chained 1, skip 2, and work a V stitch. So now we're back to a sleeve, which is a repeat of 4. So 4, basically exactly the way we did this, we do another V stitch and then we'll have 4 clusters as well for the front. So chain 1, skip 2, and we'll get working across that we have 4 clusters across this sleeve. Okay, so I've worked the 4 clusters. I went ahead and did another V-stitch, chain 1, skip 2, and let's just work through this last section. So we need to work across 4 clusters. Okay, so I've worked 1, 2, 3, 4. You should be ending with 2 stitches. I'm going to chain 1 and work a double crochet in that last stitch. So now we'll chain 3, turn, and we're going to work a cluster chain 1 in each chain 1 space across to the V. So work a cluster, chain 1, and in the next chain 1 space, so we're just doing this in each chain 1 space across to the V. Okay, so I've worked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clusters. I'm coming to my V. I'm going to work a V-stitch in the V-stitch. So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all in that V-stitch. Chain 1, cluster, chain 1 in each chain 1 space. Okay, so that's all that we're doing across. So every time you get to the V-stitch, put a V-stitch in the V-stitch, and in every chain 1, work a cluster chain 1 across. Okay, so I'm coming up to the end. So in the last space, so our turning chain, if you want to call it here, we are going to work 4 double crochet. So 1 more. So now for our next row, row 3, we're going to chain 4 and a turn. We are skipping over this first cluster. We're working into the first chain 1 space. So our repeat will be cluster chain 1 in each chain 1 space to the V-stitch. You will V-stitch in the V-stitch, chain 1, and continue repeating your pattern. So how the pattern will work is that we will be alternating between starting a row with the cluster and starting the row with the chain 4. So the repeat will be row 2 and row 3. So cluster, chain 1, cluster, chain 1, across to the V-stitch, and then we work a V in the V. Now in the PDF pattern, I have included a row by row stitch chart, and that will just help you to track how many clusters you should have for each section. That's an added bonus that I add into the PDF pattern, but I will also let you know in the written directions how many clusters in total you'll be ending with. Okay, so I've worked to the V-stitch. I'm just going to show you again. Work a V-stitch in the V-stitch, chain 1, and continue working cluster chain 1. So I'm going to work this all the way across and show you how to end this row. Okay, so I'm working to the end. I'm going to chain 1, and then we're going to do a double crochet between the 3rd double crochet and the chain 3. And then we'll chain 3, turn, and we're going to repeat we'll then repeat row 2 and 3 for the pattern. So now all the sizes are beginning the same way. So this is how the yoke will look for each of the sizes, and then you'll continue increasing for the size you're working on. So you can head to the blog and follow along with our free version or purchase the premium PDF, which gives you all the extras. But either way, you can follow along working the yoke to the size that you need. Now you can try it on as you go as well, which will get you that customized fit. So try it on to make sure before progressing that you are happy with the armholes and the size of the bust. Now you can always work the pattern until you like the arms, and you can always continue increasing for the bust if you want. You can make a few adjustments that way, but if you're just following along with the pattern, continue to the number of rows required for your size. Now I'm working on the small, so I'm going to work a total of 12 rows. Okay, so I've been working on my yoke, and it is really important to follow along with your pattern for the size you're working on, because we do need our fronts as well as our back to match up correctly for our granny squares. So it's important that we have the right number of clusters. So make sure to follow along with the size that you're working on. So for this size, I completed a total of 12 rows. So I like to go by the V stitches. It just makes it easy to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I already started my 13th because this round we're going to separate our sleeves from our body. So I'm working across the front panel in our clusters. So we started with our chain 4 for this row. So I'm working my cluster chain 1 across to our first V stitch. Okay, so I'm coming up to my V. So we're going to get our last cluster, and then I'm going to count also for you how many clusters I've worked for the front. So there's chain 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 clusters. So now I'm skipping my sleeve, which is our next section. And you're going to keep going across till you come to that next V stitch, okay? So from our V to V, this marks the sleeve. So we're skipping over our V stitch, and then we're working a cluster in the next chain 1 space. And continuing across now the back, working our cluster chain 1 in the chain 1 spaces across. Okay, so I've worked across the back. I've come to my next V stitch, and I have 22 clusters. Now I've chain 1, and we're skipping our next sleeve. So we're going from a V stitch to the next V stitch. This is our sleeve, and in the next chain 1 space, we'll continue working our cluster chain 1 across. And you're going to have 10 clusters across this front as well. So we have a total of 42 clusters. Chain 1, I'm coming to the end, and we're going to have a double crochet in the turning chain. Okay, so now we're just going to keep working back and forth in rows until we have our desired length. So this row, we're just alternating between our rows, just like we've been doing. So chain 3 and 3 double crochet. Chain 1 and keep working. So now this row will have one more cluster than the last row. So now when you end, you want to make sure you're ending on a 42 cluster row so that our clusters work out divisible by 6 to work with our granny squares. So if you alter the length, you just want to make sure that you are ending on the row that has 42 clusters. And as you're working this across, okay, and you come to your underarm, you're just working in the chain 1 space as normal, working all the way across. So I'm going to continue now working my rows until I get my length, and then I'll meet you up again. So I've been working on the body section of my cardigan, and I've gone with a total of 41 rows for my length. So I like to kind of just look down here at the sleeve and starting here, count all the way down. And you want to make sure that you're ending on your row that ends with a double crochet, because we need to have 42 clusters worked across for this side. I ended on my wrong side, but I'm going to fasten off at the end here. So I'm going to fasten this off, because what I'm going to be doing now is joining as you go my granny squares. So I'm going to come back to be joining over here. And you're going to line your granny squares up. Okay, I don't need to place them all out, but all of your granny squares are going to line up with the bottom now of the cardigan. So if you've ever done the join as you go granny square method, at this point, we're going to be joining the bottom sections and then coming back and working around the other 3 sides. So what I'll do is join onto the bottom as if I was finishing off a square, a granny square, as if we were doing that method. So I'm going to put a slip knot on my hook, and I'm just going to join into this corner with a slip stitch. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'll just move these squares out of the way. I'm going to work into this corner three doubles. Now I'm just going to shift everything so that we're looking at it from this direction. And I'm going to come over here and slip stitch into this chain 1 space. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to do 3 double crochets in the next chain 1 space, slip stitch to the next chain 1 space, continue this along our square. When I get to the end of my square, I've already crocheted into the chain one space. I'm going to chain one, slip stitch, chain one, and then we can bring in our next square. Going right into the corner. And we'll keep adding our squares like this. So we're working just this side right now of the square, working it along. And we're going to add all of our squares. So for this size, all 7 squares across the bottom. Okay, I'm coming to the end. I'm just going to show you this one more time. So we're going to crochet into our final corner. Three double crochets. I'm going to chain one, slip stitch, chain one, and then bring again in my next square. So rather than seaming, completing that last round and seaming, this is just a much easier way, I feel, to do it. If you wanted to seam the squares instead, you would have to be seaming them across here as well as across the entire length, and you would need to do another round of your granny stitch if you would prefer to do it that way. But I do feel like this is much easier, and then you don't have all the seaming to do. So I'm going to continue adding all my squares, then I'll meet you back up to show you how we're going to do the next step, which will be coming back to crochet around the other 3 sides of the squares. Okay, so I'm coming to my last square. I'm going to chain one. I'm going to slip stitch to this corner. And I'm going to chain one. And work 3 doubles in this corner, chain one, so I'm going to continue working. And at the corner, we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain one, and 3 double crochets. So now what we're going to do, let's take a look at how this looks now. Okay, so it's going to look like this. And we need to do our pass back now and complete joining all of these up. So I'm going to work down around my square as normal. So I'm going to go across. I'm going to do my 3 double, chain one, 3 double, 3 double chain 1 in each chain 1 space, and then when we get down to this corner, I'm going to meet you up and show you how to do that. And then we're just going to keep working, finishing that final round, joining everything as we go. Okay, so I'm coming down to the corner. I'm going to work 3 double crochets. I'm going to chain 1. Now what we need to do is slip stitch down into this corner. I'm going to go under, slip stitch and chain 1, and then we can begin right into this corner, the next square, work our 3 doubles, and then we need to slip stitch over to this square, the first square, as we go. So slip stitch, then we work our double crochets on the second square, so 3 doubles, then we slip stitch to the first square, 3 doubles, slip stitch, 3 doubles, slip stitch, three doubles, slip stitch, 3 doubles in the corner, chain 1 at the corner, slip stitch to our other corner, chain 1, then add our 3 doubles into the same corner, and we are going to complete now. I'll chain 1, complete going across, doing our corner, coming down, and then working the same way I just showed you how to do this corner down here. So I'm going to go across, I'll meet you up and show you one more time. Okay, so I've worked my 3 doubles down in the final corner of my second square. I'm going to chain 1, and when I slip stitch to this corner, I'm going to go underneath, chain 1, and then over to my third square, I need to do my 3 doubles down in the first corner. Slip stitch, and then work my 3 double crochet to my third square, slip stitch to my second square, and we're going to continue working around all of the squares, joining them just like this. So it's just repetitive once you get going, but we're going to end up getting all of our squares joined together so that it's nice and seamless down to the bottom of our cardigan. Continue working along the bottom, joining everything off camera, and then I'll meet you up when I get to the end of my last square. So we'll be ending up here at the top corner, and then I'll meet you up. We'll need to work and join down here to finish off this edge, because you can see this one is 1 row short. So we'll come back around and we'll be joining down in here so that everything's evened up. If you'd like to add a hood to the cardigan, make sure that you have your right side you're facing, and it kind of looks like you can see the little bit nicer edge. So what we're going to do, I'm going to grab a ball of yarn and we're going to join up to this corner. So we'll take a slip knot and put it on our hook. We'll join into the first stitch with a slip stitch, chain 3. And it's going to be really easy to pick out our clusters, the stitches that we worked the clusters into. So we're skipping over 2 and working 3 double crochet. Chain 1, and then we're skipping over 2 and we're working another 3DC cluster in the stitch that's above this cluster. So you're pretty much just matching them up as you work along that foundation row. Chain 1. So it's pretty easy just to eyeball it if you don't want to count. And when you get to your corner V-stitch, we're just going to add 3 double crochet. So you're not going to be adding any V's. So we're basically just skipping to working 3 double crochet into the next. Chain 1. And work this all the way along. And if you're struggling to work into that foundation row, you could always go down a hook size for this row just so it's a little easier to work into the stitch, but if you can manage it, just continue working it. Okay, so I've worked across 30 clusters and we're going to be ending with a double crochet in the last stitch. So I've chained 1, double crochet, chain 3, and now we'll be working back our cluster chain 1 in every chain 1 space. So we're going to start with 2 double chain 1. So here's our first cluster, and we're going to alternate between these rows now of having the beginning ending with a double and beginning with a cluster. So we'll go between 30 and 31 cluster rows. So basically what we've covered with the body, you're just working back and forth in those rows till we get the necessary height for the hood. Chain 1, so 3 double crochet. And chain 1, 3 double crochet, chain 1, and we're going to continue working across the row just like this. I'll pop up some directions on how many rows to do for the hood. Of course, you can alter it by a few rows if you want the hood to be a little bit bigger, or if you want it to fit a little snugger against the head, you can always alter that. But I will pop up directions for how many to do to get the same hood height as what I'm doing. So I'm going to continue to work my rows off camera, and then I'll meet you back up for the next step. Okay, so I've been working on the hood and I've ended up doing a total of 26 rows, so next I'm just going to show you how you can quickly seam the top of the hood together to finish it off. On a chain 1, And I want my right side, and I still have my marker here, so I want my right sides facing so that the seam goes to the inside of the hood. Now you could use your yarn needle and just sew the hood, but I have a really quick, easy way to do this. So I've chained one. I'm going to loosely single crochet. So I'm going to go through the cluster. Then I'm going to go through the chain one space. And I'm going to go through the center of the cluster. So the second double crochet. So I'm just single crocheting across, making sure that I keep the stitch loose enough that I'm not pulling the hood. But this is just really quick and easy to seam it up. You don't need to go through every stitch. It's not necessary. Once you get all the way, you can just fasten that off. Just want to make sure it's not pulling the hood in. And then you can see where we have stitched it. It just blends in really nice, and this isn't too bulky as well. But now if you really want it flat, then just use a yarn needle to sew it. So to do one of our sleeves, I have my right side of the cardigan marked, and what we're going to do is have the right side facing, but we will be working on the wrong side of the work as we work the sleeve. So you can see here, let's just examine the sleeve. We have our V stitches. You can see where we've worked the V in the V on this side, and you can see where we've worked the V in the V on that side. So what we're going to do is join into a V stitch. I'm going to put a slip knot on my hook. We're going to come here, we're going to join into the V, the slip stitch. Tighten that up, and then we're going to go over. Make sure you also have a tail just for sewing any open gapping that you'll have at the end. Go over to the other V and slip stitch. Then we're going to slip stitch to the first chain one space. We're going to chain 3 and work a cluster. So 2 double crochets, chain 1, next chain 1 space, 3 double crochet, chain 1, and you're going to work around like this in every chain 1 space. So 3 doubles, chain 1, and I'm going to meet you up when I get around. Okay, so I've worked around 16 clusters. I'm going to chain 1 and join to our chain 3. I'm going to chain 3 and then I'm going to turn. So now I'm on the right side. This tail can go to the inside. And I'm going to work 2 doubles because our chain 3 counts as our first. I'm going to chain 1 and work 3 doubles. Chain 1, doubles, chain 1, and work around the sleeve again. Okay, so I've chained 1. I'm going to slip stitch and my chain 3 to join, chain 3, and then we're going to turn again, and we're just going to be repeating rounds just like this. So I'm going to work all the way around again. So I've slip stitched to join. I'm going to chain 3 and turn, work 2 double crochet to complete my cluster. And now, so you have a little bit of flexibility with the sleeves to adjust them as you would prefer. So this isn't an overly big sleeve on this cardigan. So if you wanted your sleeve to maybe go a little bit more bell-shaped, you could do some increases to make it work with either with your 5 cluster granny square. And let's say we have 16 clusters. Let's say you want your sleeve to be a little bit bigger down at the cuff and you want it to put 4, you could increase up to 20 clusters so that you could have your 4 granny squares going around your cuff. As it stands now, if we decrease, we're going to have just 3. Now, for some of the sizes, you're going to have to play around to get it to equal out how you want it. So for this one, if I'm doing 3, I need to do a decrease. For the extra small, you have 14, so you would need to increase to get up to 15 clusters so that you have the 3 granny squares around. So to do an increase, it's really simple. You're just adding another cluster to the same chain 1 space. Okay, so there's a chain 1 and then you just add in another cluster. Now I would do it probably in the last stitch so it's not noticeable, or the first stitch, but that's an easy way to increase, and you could add several increases if you want that bigger sleeve at the bottom, which can look really nice actually. But also, if you want to narrow out your sleeve more than maybe I have put in the pattern. So if, let's say, you have one of the plus size sweaters and you don't want as large, you still want to narrow out your cuff a little bit, you could decrease down to even the 15 clusters to make it just adding the 3 squares. Or if you want 4, then make sure you have 20 squares. So really you can play around with the pattern sort of how you want it. Once you know how to do an increase and once you know how to do a decrease, you can customize it to the fit that you want. So now let me show you how to do the decrease, because I am going to keep my sleeve at the 3 granny squares. So I'm going to do a double crochet, and then I'm going to do a double crochet across these next 2. So I'm going to yarn over, go through, pull through 2, yarn over, go to the next chain 1 space, pull through 2, pull through 3, and then do another double crochet. Okay, so let me just pull it back and show it to you one more time, since this is the only decrease I'm doing. We're going to yarn over, we're going to complete a double crochet as normal. Then we're going to yarn over, go through the same chain 1 space, pull through 2, yarn over, go to the next chain 1 space, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 3, and then do another double crochet as normal. Chain 1, slip stitch to join, chain 3, and turn, and now we'll have 15 clusters that we're going to be working so that we can seam around 3 granny squares. Now, if you want to just do a normal cuff, that you don't want to add the granny square cuff, I can link maybe one of my other patterns in the description below that will show you just how to do a regular cuff. I mean, it could be as simple as adding single crochet stitches just around, or you can do that join as you go ribbed cuff that I have in many of my tutorials. So I'm going to continue working my rounds now to get the required length. You can try it on as you go to really get the length that you want. Keep in mind that the granny cuff is going to add 5 inches. So you want to take that into consideration if you're trying it on as you go to get the right length. I mean, you could even make this a shorter sleeve if you wanted, but I'm going to go with a full length sleeve and continue working rounds. And then I'll meet you back up again to show you how to add the granny squares. Okay, so I wanted to show you one of our finished sleeves. So here is the sleeve. I have 15 clusters and I added 3 of the granny squares already. And I've used the join as you go technique to add the squares. So now I'm going to show you how to do it. It's super easy and comes together really quick. So here's my other sleeve. And I worked a total of 25 rounds. In total, you want to make sure that you are ending on the wrong side. So let me try and get this in a good position so you can see. So I've chained 1, I'm going to slip stitch to join and chain 1. And we're going to start crocheting double crochets into this corner. So work 3 doubles. Okay, so you want it to, this is the right side of our square, this is the right side of the cardigan, so you want it to look like this. These clusters are going to be lining up. We're going to slip stitch here to join. Then we're going to work 3 doubles in the next chain 1 of the square. And then we're going to slip stitch to the next chain 1 of the sleeve. Continue across the square and the sleeve in this manner. So now when we get to the corner of the square, we'll work 3 double crochets, chain 1. Okay, so then we'll slip stitch into the next, and then we'll chain 1, and then we'll be bringing in the next square. So you can always just move this a little bit. Bring in the next square and double crochet into the corner. So now it doesn't matter the size, how many squares you have going around, it's going to follow the same method. Just do add as many squares as you need to. Okay, so we've double crocheted 3 and then we'll slip stitch. And keep working across this square. Coming to the end of this ball and it's tangling up a little bit. Now I've worked to the next corner I'm going to chain 1, slip stitch, chain 1, and bring in the next square. Okay, I'll work across this square. I've worked across to this corner. I'm going to chain 1, and it's going to come over here to this starting spot. So we're going to slip stitch it. Chain 1, and I'm going to start now working back around. So we're going to start with this corner, and then I'm going to position this so you can kind of see what we're doing. So what we'll be doing now is we're going to be working these 3 sides. So I'm going to work my square as normal, working a granny square. So I'm going to come up, I'll do my corner, 3 double, chain 1, 3 double, work across, corner, 3 double, chain 1, 3 double, and then I'm going to come down to this corner. I'm going to meet you back up to show you the next step. Okay, so I've worked down to this corner. I'm going to chain 1, and now here's the base of the sleeve. I'm going to go under and slip stitch. And I'm going to chain 1. And now I need to turn to come to the next square. And then we're going to be double crocheting on this side and slip stitching to the first square we worked around on this side. So we'll go in and do 3 doubles in that corner. Then I need to slip stitch over to this square to join it. So double crochet 3, and then slip stitch over to that square. Okay, we're getting up to the last corner. So we'll work our 3 doubles. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to slip stitch up into this corner. Chain 1. Okay, and then finish this corner of this square with my 3 doubles. Chain 1, and as we work around, so now we're going to come working down to here. We're going to repeat what we did over here to this side. So we'll be slip stitching down here. We'll be working our 3 doubles, slip stitch, 3 doubles, slip stitch, and continue that. And then I'm going to meet you up over here at this side as we're coming to needing to join it at this section, which will be a little bit different. So work your way down, work your way back up, and then I'm going to meet you over here. Okay, so I've come to this corner, I've chained 1, and now we're going to work down, working our double crochets down this side and slip stitching to this side so that it's joined up. So I'm going to slip stitch over to this corner and chain 1, come around the corner working my 3 doubles, I'm going to turn this all the way around. So it's almost now looking like if we were going the other direction. So slip stitch, 3 doubles to this side. Once you get the hang of the join as you go method, it's not that hard. It's going to just come naturally, and then it's eliminating all that seaming. So once you get the hang of it, you'll really love this technique. So we're just slip stitching over, because this square, we finished it up that side. You want to make sure that each square has 2 rounds. Slip stitch. Okay, we're getting down to the corner. So we'll chain 1, and then down here, I'm going under for this one. I'm going to slip stitch it to join. And then we can fasten this off. And then we'll need to weave in the tails. So you can see, it's nice. It actually comes out a little bit bigger, the cuff down here, which I think I really like the look of. So the square, and the squares end up being a little bit bigger than the actual sleeve stitch. So it kind of gives it a nice little flare, which looks good. Now you just want to make sure to kind of almost give this a little knot, just to make sure that it is good and secure. And then I would take this tail and go more to the other side as we're weaving it. You're just going to weave through your stitches, hiding that tail, and then back in the opposite direction. Just make sure that it's not awkwardly pulling anything. Now you could take this and go, whoops, to the inside and do this, or just carefully hide it as you weave it. So now what we're going to want to do is the edging, and I'm going to take a smaller hook for that, so a 4mm. And this is where you can kind of decide. You could use yellow to do your edge. You could use the orange to do the edge. We have lots left over in these colors, so you could even do a round of each. You could do the orangey color and then the yellow if you want that pop of color. Or I still have some of the cream left. You could do cream as well. So this is kind of comes down to personal preference on what colors that you want to do this section. So it looks something like this if you wanted to do a color, but I'm going to go with keeping it all in the cream. So I'm going to show you how to do it with the cream yarn. I also wanted to mention that the hood used just over a ball. So if you didn't want the hood, you would probably use about 1 ball less. So what we're going to do is put a slip knot on our hook. Okay, and this is our lower right side, okay, right front. We're going to join right down into let me move this just so it's maybe a little easier to see. So we're going to chain 3 for our first double. Then we're going to work 2 double crochet. So that makes our first cluster. We're going to chain 1. We're going to work a cluster in our next chain 1 space. chain 1. So I'm just working clusters, double crochet clusters in our spaces. So as we're coming here to this join, we're going to be skipping over and going into now this space. Chain 1, and then we skip this row and we're going into this row that has the gap. Chain 1. Okay, so I'm going to continue up the side. So I also wanted to mention, if you just want to do the one row, it's good to start on the right side. But if, let's say, you want to do 2 rows and you want to end on the right side, then start doing your clusters on the wrong side of your work, and then you can end on the right side. If you want to do 3 rows, then start like this, because you'll then end on your right side as well. So we're coming up to the hood. So I'm going to do my three double crochets, chain 1, and then you can see we have our foundation row and then we have our space. So just keep working, and you're going to continue all the way down to the bottom of your left side. Okay, so once you work all the way down, you're going to do your 3 doubles in the last space. Then you can fasten off. Now, if you, again, this is where you can add a little bit more bust ease. So I would try it on. I've tried mine on, and 1 row of the edging is all I need for myself. But if you've made it and you feel like it's a little snug and you need to add a little bit more, this is where you could add some extra. Now, you may have enough of cream left to do 1 more row. I'm not sure if you could get 2 more. So again, like I say, if you're going to do 2 rows, I would start on the wrong side. Start over here so that you're finishing on the right side. If you do 3, you can go just like this. And then what you're going to do is just our pattern. So you're going to chain 3, and then you're going to start your clusters in your chain 1 spaces, work all the way around. Now, of course, we have lots of the other 2 colors left, so you can always do that if you need a little bit more. Or buy an extra ball just to be on the safe side if you think you may end up adding more to the edge of this one. But this just finishes it off nicely. We've got some tail still to weave. I'm going to take off my stitch marker now. Okay, so what I've added is an I-cord just for tying, and you can add this wherever you want. So I would try it on and decide where you would like your tie. I've gone down from the foundation row. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what you're going to do is pull off about 80 inches, an 80-inch tail. Just make sure it's nice and long because we'll be doing about 120 stitches with our I-cord. So what you're going to do is pull through. And so here's my working yarn and here's my tail. So I'm going to pull over with my working yarn and start out by pulling through. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tail, wrapping it over the crochet hook, then yarning over and pulling through. So take the tail, wrap it over the crochet hook, yarn over, pulling through. And you're going to do this for 120 stitches. You can see it makes a really nice, beautiful cord. Okay, so once you have finished, you can fasten off. You can give it a knot. Then you can just trim it, or you can just weave back the tail a little bit so that your trimmed end isn't fraying at the bottom. So once you've finished, you can use the I-cords to tie when wearing. Really, you can tie it however you want. You can finish with a light steam. Just be careful not to melt any of the stitches, but it is a good idea to give it a steam or lay it out and block it just to finish it so that it's nice and smooth and has a nice pressed look. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all my new videos and tutorials. Make sure to check the description box below the video for all the links. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.